All right, everybody, welcome back to the ATB NFL Live Show. We're back with divisional picks this week. Big wild card weekend, a blowout wild card weekend, though, mostly, unfortunately.
Except for that one game.
5 out of 6, yeah.
Yeah, 5 out of 6 were, by the definition, essentially blowouts. And, yeah, I mean, our picks, I don't know if you guys went back and saw, I should have been 5-1 if I was willing to pick the Packers. I should have been willing to, but also I thought I had a pretty good week. We did a good job breaking down the games for the most part, but yeah, we're gonna get into it. Joining me as always, Tony and Zach here, guys. You excited for the divisional picks this week, or divisional round?
Yes.
I'm excited for tomorrow.
Still alive.
I'm excited for tomorrow since I'll actually get to watch the games as I have to work today. But
that's right. That sucks. Yeah.
Well, nice of the NFL to put the two highest spread games on Saturday while you're working. So
that is what happens when both one seeds. That is what happens when both one seeds play.
That is true, for sure. But no, yeah, should be a fun divisional round. Hopefully, a little bit more close games. Have less games to have that happen in. But I think we'll at least have some better games this week, hopefully. But before we get into the games, we're going to break those down, spend a good amount of time on each of them. But we do want to get some coaching news in here. So last week we didn't really talk about too much, but Gerard Mayo obviously was the replacement for Bill Belichick, as it was kind of built into his contract, basically, is from what we found out with that. So no surprises there. He gets brought in. Did get a little bit of flack for some comments he made during the press conference because, of course, people get upset about stuff like that, but I'm not going to even give that the time of day.
He made some fantastic comments, actually.
Right, exactly.
If you really want to dive into it. He made some amazing comments.
Wait, I was completely oblivious to all of this. Give me the Cliff Notes version.
Well, it's very easy. There was a question to him about race, and he said, "I do see color because I feel like if you choose not to see color, you choose not to see racism," which is very, very true. I don't think there's any people want to bring up a thing because somebody was asked a question. One, I don't understand why I need to be asked that question at a football press conference. It's just completely unnecessary. Seems like somebody was just trying to fuel some fire that they wanted to have.
Get that answer.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he had a fantastic answer. People want to have a problem with that. People want to have a problem with that. So that's as Shayne said, that's where it kind of ends. Yeah,
that was the short version of it. Yeah, it's basically that. Of course, immediately everybody's like, "Uh-oh, the Patriots made a mistake," and I'm like, "Okay, that's how we start this. All right, there we go." Yep. So anyway, don't worry about it.
Well, if there is a city that's going to have a problem with that, that's Boston.
That's a whole other thing. But not the only guy though that gets a job that he kind of, I think we all believe, deserves. Especially Raiders do officially make the decision to have Antonio Pierce be their full-time coach. Also, the caveat that he's
Max Crosby.
Yeah, they get to keep Max Crosby too.
I saw he's bringing in Marvin Lewis. That's awesome.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
They're bringing in a bunch of guys with a lot of experience. Marvin Lewis, Tom Coughlin's going to be advising the team a little bit too. And I guess that was part of his pitch was, hey, I know I don't have all the experience at this point, but I know what I don't know. I think was his quote, apparently, that he had to the Raiders brass that, hey, I'm going to bring in guys to help me on certain things, to show me what I should be doing in these situations, and kind of take some stuff off his plate that maybe he would have to spend too much time learning right now. So I think they're doing everything right with this. I think that for the culture of the team, for the growth of this team, even if ultimately he has to, they have to go elsewhere in a few years, right? I think the foundation that he's going to be able to lay with the way the players feel about him will give them the ability to say, hey, didn't work out fully, but we really appreciate everything. I think the players will understand if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. I do think it's the best move they can make right now for the short term and probably the long term, guys.
Who came after McDaniels in Denver?
Was that Fox? Was that John Fox?
I think so. We're brushing up against my knowledge here. I don't know if I know that one off the top.
No, because I think he was the coach of the Super Bowl team, so it would have been he would have had to have been after McDaniels. I think it was right after McDaniels that Fox got in.
The show right about that? History on air. Those are research on air. It was Josh McDaniels, Eric. Yep, John Fox, and then Gary Kubiak for.
Okay.
A season.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, again, why do I even remember that? Don't ask me.
No, I mean that's what I was either thinking it was I actually was going back further. I thought it was Shanahan. So I was
that was
way before that. Yeah, I was before. That was literally who took over for Shanahan. But Yeah, no. So,
But I like that he's surrounding himself with the vets, right? Like
Yeah,
Sean McVay,
that's really important.
his first hire was Wade Phillips, right? Like,
my point being, I'm wondering if this will have the same effect for the Raiders as it did for the Broncos after the post Josh McDaniels era blossoming the team.
Maybe, you never know. I mean, they had a strong finish compared to what we would have expected from them.
Oh yeah,
right. So like,
and that definitely would help. That's definitely a lot of help for Antonio Pierce because like he took the same team that a previous coach, even though it was a failed coach, had and a longtime coordinator and got them to more wins than the coach that started the season. So like he did have the results to show the Raiders and be like, hey, I've done this. Like I did it 5 times. Like give me, let me show you who I'll bring into the building and then I'll get you some more on top of that 5. That seems like a pretty good plan to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, again, this is the right move for them for right now. Again, will it work out long term? You never know, but I think that they could tell, and I think the players knew as well that this was the right guy for the job for right now. So we'll see what he does. I think that obviously it's tough sledding in the AFC in general, and in that division, you never know if the Chargers figure something out with head coach themselves. They could be dangerous.
Sounds like they're zeroing in on their guy.
Yeah, speaking of some of the top candidates, I wanted to kind of just brush up on what's happening with them. So Harbaugh, his focus a lot of his time looks like with the Chargers and the Falcons. Apparently going to meet again too with them. The Falcons are really
right there.
Yeah, the Falcons are really getting heavy into the big coaches.
Oh,
right?
the Falcons are taking some swangs.
Yeah, big Bill Belichick seems to be kind of the in-house favorite right now, from what I can tell. That he's probably going to be looking to join the Falcons at this point. Harbaugh, obviously, like I said, interviewed with them again. They interviewed Vrabel, who's the guy I mentioned for them too. I think if they swung and miss on a guy like Belichick, I think Vrabel would make a lot of sense too. Just to kind of bring that same type of like just CEO, head coach, like smart energy into that building that they didn't have with let's just say his understudy.
You just can't have Arthur Smith with you.
Right. That would be the funniest thing
that would be hysterical. He brings in Vrabel, and Vrabel's just like, all right, blank. Look, here's the deal. You got me, but you're gonna have to see this man again this year.
Right.
Yeah. See, I think that conversation would happen before the hiring of Vrabel.
I imagine that would be the case, but you never know. But no, I'm just gonna say I think Belichick is gonna be a Falcon ultimately. I think he's gonna be coaching that team. Harbaugh, if he doesn't stay at Michigan, I think Chargers is probably who he's gonna end up being, just from what we've seen. So those 2 big names that might be off the board here in the near future.
Mr. Stephen Ross down in Miami is going to do everything he can to stop.
Oh, I know. I've
John
heard about
Harbaugh
that.
from leaving Michigan. He will put a lot of money into Michigan before he puts any of that money into Miami.
I've heard that, unfortunately, Zach. So sucks to be a fan of the team that's owned by him, but it is what it is.
No common denominator over the course of our playoff issues.
Yeah. We won't talk about today. We already said pre-show that we're not gonna get on today.
No. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Harbaugh because you do have so many people calling his name.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the coordinators for the Lions are real busy this week with interviews. They're getting interviewed, but pretty much everybody, it feels like. So going to be a lot of movement, I think, especially after the playoffs are fully over. I think we're going to see a lot of these guys, move on to and get a lot of coaching opportunities here. I'm curious to see ultimately if Vrabel, especially because his candidacy as a head coach in this cycle is interesting to me because he kind of feels like he might end up being the odd man out of the veteran guys. And I wonder what he does if he doesn't get an actual job as a head coach. Does he look to be the coordinator for somebody defensively? Does he go into like an assistant head coach position somewhere? That'll be interesting to see.
I mean, personally, I don't see what's wrong with taking a year off.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to do that too,
I mean, he has to have
a
family. He's got. They all have this money. Like, I don't necessarily feel like taking a year off in the coaching world is nearly as damaging as taking a year off as you're playing. Like, take a year off, enjoy some time with your family, and then next coaching cycle be like, hey guys, remember I didn't get a job last time. I definitely feel like I have that candidacy. There's no reason why I shouldn't have an opportunity.
Worked out for McCarthy clearly because he still has a job somehow even after he took a year off. So
yeah,
I think if he doesn't get a head coaching job this cycle, he's gonna call up his alma mater and offer his services in a year. They seem to be going all in because they just brought in Caleb Downs.
Ohio State.
Oh, is that Ohio State?
Yeah, they bring in Judkins. They brought in Caleb Downs. They are they paid all of their guys who would have gone on day 2 to stay with the team for one more year. Mm-hmm. Get Vrabel in the building and just go for it all. I could see that happening.
That would definitely
if he doesn't
fun.
get a head coaching job.
For sure, that would definitely be fun. I wouldn't hate that.
He get a ring one way or another.
Yeah,
Michigan State's getting demolished by Ohio State regardless, so it doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, Tony has no
I just can't wait till next college football season. It's on the up for Virginia Tech this season.
Oh, that's right. They didn't have too bad of a season, huh?
No, we won. We destroyed Tulane in our bowl game.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you guys even went to the bowl. Hey, good for you. I am a Wisconsin fan, so we're in an interesting spot. That's all I'll say about
Aren't you guys just like
big win in basketball last night?
Oh yeah.
Aren't you guys just like perpetually like 10-2, 9-3?
We were.
And then,
I don't know about in the near future, but yeah, it was a little bit of a weird season this year with Fickle taking over. But hey, we're not going to talk about college right now. I already promised Zach we're not going to talk about college as much this year, so we're not going to do that. Let's get into these games. So we have 2 games today and 2 games tomorrow, of course. The first game on the docket, I think, is the game that I have the most of these 2 big spread games, because these are the 1 seed games, right? So we're talking Texans, Ravens, Packers, 49ers. The Texans Ravens game is the most interesting one to me because I can see a path to it being a very good game easier than I can the Niners and Packers, right? I think this one has more things you can talk about where you can talk yourself and okay, I could see, maybe an upset, but I want to send it over to Tony first. What do you think about this game in general? You don't have to give your full predictions. We'll have some more time to talk about this game in depth, but just kind of your overall thoughts on the game so far with it.
Bet the over is my first instinct. I just think that I understand both defenses have been really good for stretches this season, put the clamps on anybody, but we're talking about 2 quarterbacks playing out of their goddamn minds right now. And and then you factor in the Marlon Humphrey loss. That means that somebody is going out on the field that you don't want out there. And that means Nico Collins going to be catching balls in traffic, making the big plays down the field. I still think that the Ravens have a pretty sizable advantage in this one. I'm not predicting a full-on upset, but I wouldn't be surprised if that 9.5 number looks a little hairy in the game.
Yeah, I think especially the spread is what kind of, I would say, if you're betting on this game, that spread is pretty daunting, right, for the Ravens team that, as good as they are, I think the Texans are obviously, they're hot right now. The Ravens have had a lot of rest. Even if they do come out and win this game, I think it's going to be hard for them to really put it on them a lot in this game. I think it's going to be not a tune-up game by any means, obviously, but they have to get tuned back up a little bit here after missing a lot of time with the starters. What do you think, Zach, for this game right now?
I think that while everybody wants this to be a really, really high scoring competitive game, there is the fact that it's cold as hell here right now. It has not been above freezing for the past week. We have gotten a couple days of snow back to back. It is windy. It's not going to be above freezing at kickoff. It'll be 23 degrees. So I think that is a very big factor for Stroud, who has played in a dome for half the season this year. I don't know how he's fared in cold weather games, if he's played many cold weather games.
The man played at Ohio State.
I know he played at Ohio State, but this is also the NFL and much different defenses. I mean, outside of playing, I get that he played at Ohio State, but this is a very different speed of game and different, even quarterbacks who have been in the NFL for quite a few seasons can struggle playing outside once they've been in the dome for however long. I just think it's something to be concerned, not so much but just the conditions that have been over the past couple of days. It's nasty here. I'm not that far, 2-3 hours. So that, I think that's just a very big factor for the over for everybody, because I don't balls are going to be a lot harder. Stuff's going to bounce. It's not going to go as well. For the over, Baltimore's looked really, 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 really good this year. They've taken down pretty much anybody that the NFC has to offer. They've taken down anybody that the AFC has to offer. I can't imagine that Lamar Jackson gives up the opportunity to get the first divisional playoff win in his career, as he's yet to get to a conference championship game, and this is his opportunity. So there's just a lot more that I'm confident with the Ravens and the overall experience and how many times they've been there before versus this is D'Amico Ryan's first trip as a head coach. This is CJ Stroud's first trip in the NFL. A lot of the players on offense and defense, this is all their first trips. There's just a lot more opportunity for them for mistakes and missteps this week, as opposed to having a home game last week, having the crowd on their side, getting a less inferior opponent, and just having all the advantages where they're now on the opposite side of that. I think it's going to be a very big wake-up call for Houston this week.
I think it's fair to say that I think obviously the Ravens, the way they've played this year, I mean, for the most part, especially in big games against the best teams, right? I mean, we knew what they did. We know what they did to the Dolphins. We know what they did to the 49ers. Like, they can put it on the best teams in the NFL, and they've shown that. I do think, like I said, one of the things that's going to factor in here is the amount of rest that they've had, right? I think it is going to take a little bit of time to get warmed up, to get going. And, maybe that doesn't mean they lose this game, but I do think it's going to make it a little bit closer than maybe it could be otherwise, right? With a fully, not only healthy team with Humphrey being out, but just a team that's been playing together for a little bit. Like, that's a long layoff. I think it's going to be like almost 20 days or something like that for Lamar and some of the other starters. Like, it's a long time to not play football. And then to come out and do that, especially in a cold weather game, that's going to be pretty jarring for them. But I give the edge to the Ravens, not just because they're the better football team, but because I think if the passing game is right, if it is affected at all by the weather, I trust the Ravens' ground attack with Lamar as a runner and with Gus Edwards. Like, that rushing attack, I think, is going to be huge in this game. I think they're going to lean on it to see if they can do it early. Now, the Texans' defense has been really good against the run, right? Like, they've been a really good defense. But if we're talking about run game versus run game, Singletary's been great for the Texans. It's been huge with the way that Pierce has played, but I'd still obviously give the edge to the Ravens in the run game, especially adding in Lamar there. So I just think there's a lot to overcome for the Texans. I think that they've done better than anyone could have ever asked them to do, right? Between the way Stroud has played, between the way the defense has played under Ryan's the first year, all this is great, right? And I think they should be very, very proud of where they've gotten. And even if they do lose this game pretty handedly, that's what everyone is expecting to happen. Right, like, it's not like, oh my gosh, they disappointed so much they lost by 10. Like, no, that's what should probably happen against the number one seed in the AFC, right? Like, that's just kind of how it is. So
yeah, even if the Texans lose this game, this season is an overwhelming success.
Oh, not even close. Yeah, not even,
like it's like it is gonna like shame in comparison to what we were talking about the Giants last year. Like, no, you have your pieces in place. This is no faux like, oh, this team made it, but like, what are they going to do next year? No, you have full reason to believe that you can continue competing with the Jaguars for the title every single season hereafter. Like, this has been an incredible season for you guys. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but let's get into our actual predictions then here for this game a little bit. Tony, what do you have for the score in this one?
So, like I said, I do think that this is going to be high scoring. So when it comes to cold, unless we're talking extreme cold like Kansas City was last week, as long as it's between 0 and 32, I don't even really factor it in. I look at wind. The ball's a little bit harder to catch, but they practice these things. I'm looking at wind, and it's not going to be all that windy. So I still feel good about airing the ball out. I think that the Ravens, it probably makes sense to try to ground and pound just to, take possessions away from the Texans, just to continue to flex their advantage. But when the Texans have the ball, I think they're going to be shooting every single time they have it.
They have to, yeah.
And I think they're going to hit a fair amount of these. I think they're going to get their points. So the Ravens, I do trust to pull away, but I wouldn't be surprised, like you were saying, if the 20 days off makes a sloppy first half of football for the Ravens. Maybe Gus Edwards puts a ball on the ground, and the Texans maybe even go into halftime with a lead. But ultimately, I think the Ravens do end up pulling it out. I'm going to say, really, 34-27 feels like a nice score. I do expect fireworks. I expect this to be a very entertaining game, and I hope the Texans keep with the punches. Stroud has shown he can be unflappable with the pocket movement, everything. The lights are brighter, so hopefully he keeps that poise, because as long as they can keep punching back, we're going to have a fun game.
Yeah, Stroud is the kind of guy that I could see throwing 3 first half picks and not carrying, just throwing the ball 30 more times in the second half.
The Trevor Lawrence game from last year's playoffs, go down 27-0 and come back and win.
Pretty much. That's
they're not the Chargers, so
no.
no. The Ravens are a different beast. They're not giving up a 27.
Yeah, the energy there, though, I can see being a lot of the same thing. Everyone ready? Oh, JT, we have a comment from JT here. He's going to have a lot of bragging rights over us this year because of his thoughts on the Buccaneers.
Yeah, you have been right every time we've been on opposite ends of this thing, but you're just wrong this time.
Not this week.
We're going to get there. You're just wrong this time. Restore the roar, baby.
This one's
yes.
No.
Yes.
But
it's not the same old Lions.
No. What do you have for the score though for this one, Zach? With the Texans?
Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be a lot more low scoring just because I think these defenses are gonna like hone in, and especially the Ravens defense. I know they don't have Marlon Humphrey, but I think more of the front seven is going to just dig in and make this a long
Jadeveon Clowney revenge game, perhaps.
He's gonna make they're gonna make it a long day.
It has been nice.
Yes, they're gonna make this a long day for CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. Like I said, they've shut down the best of the best offenses that are in the league this season. I'm not concerned about the Ravens. This is Lamar Jackson's time to, like I said, it's the way I felt about Dallas last week, outside of like they would have to beat the 49ers, but that's a different story if we were talking about that. But there's literally the easiest path for the Ravens right now is just walk through and get to the Super Bowl. They have the chance. It's probably the best opportunity they have that they've had in the past 4 or 5 years. The team is as healthy as it's been, whatever. So I think it's going to be a bit lower scoring. I'm going to say Baltimore 24-20.
That's fair. I settled on 27-21. I think it's going to. The spread is a little bit too big for me. I do think it's going to be a sloppy game than maybe they would be used to playing at this point, just because of the rest. But I do think they'll pull it out. I do think that the Texans, as great as they've been, I think it ends here. Again, no shame in that. I think you guys will be around here for a long time with Stroud as your quarterback. So no harm, no foul there. I think you'll be.
And Ryan's as coach. That's not nearly as under. I mean, that's probably a little more undersold than the Stroud at quarterback. I mean, Ryan's has been incredible this season.
Yes.
Yeah, him coaching up Christian Harris on that.
That was an awesome clip. Awesome clip. That's great. No, were you gonna say something there, Tony?
Yeah. So you said 27-21 is your score prediction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you cash the over then. The over under is 43.5. Yeah. So you're on the over too.
Even though I'm like not as high scoring as your game, I don't 43.5 is a low one for the.
That feels like low, especially for.
That's what I'm saying, people. My first thought was bet the damn over.
Oh, I'm still in the over for sure. Like that's really. I mean, the defenses would really have to come out to play with these two teams, or the Ravens.
That's saying that. Like the Dolphins game is going to happen this week. Like that was probably the only under, unless that probably still hit the over last week for whatever that total was.
I think it was in the 30s, wasn't it?
It had to have been.
And they scored 39
points? It was 26-7. So
it did hit the under. Then it had to have.
Yeah, I bet the over in that game and did not see it deposited in my account. So
okay. The sad part is that the only reason that the Dolphins even scored was because Tua just threw one up there for Tyreek, man. Like
that was most of the offense when it was on fire.
That's fair. But I mean, that one was especially like if you want to like joke about Tua throwing the ball.
That's also an underselling point of the last couple of weeks is how much Tyreek Hill dropped balls. But we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, he had the dropsies a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, let's move on.
2,000 in his eyes. Packers. Yes, Packers.
Packers. 49ers. So the Packers, of course, maybe the biggest winners of Wild Card Weekend in terms of just like. What they did to a team that was the 2 seed, obviously the first 7 seeds who win a playoff game, because my Steelers could not also have that feat completed. Not that I thought they would, but Packers is still the only one without honor. So they go into Dallas and absolutely demolish them. It was, I think, 42-16.
Yeah. I just want to say
the final score does not.
The final score does not reflect what happened. Do not say that was a close game.
It's still a 2-touchdown game, and that tells you all you need to know about the Cowboys for that game. But no, so the Packers obviously come out. They completely dominate the Cowboys, but it's a little bit of a different beast they're going up against and going into this week. We saw what the Niners did to that Cowboys team as well. I think that this is a different, obviously, level that they're dealing with. The spread is 10 points. I understand it. I really do. The Packers, as much as the Packers have been the thorn in the side of the Cowboys' playoff hopes multiple times, the Niners have been the exact opposite for the Packers, right? Like, they have done a lot of damage to the team over the last half decade, especially. So I think this is really an interesting game because we saw what Jordan Love did to the Cowboys defense. I don't know if he can replicate that against his 49ers team. But if he can, it would at least make it more interesting, right? I think it's going to take a lot of effort from the Packers offense to even make this game close. When you factor in Joe Barry, as much as he did have a good game against the Cowboys overall, this is still Joe Barry coordinating this defense, right? It's just not a great matchup for them on the defensive side of the ball. But what do you think of this one, Tony?
Yeah, so at that point right there, right? Like,
yeah.
Joe Barry did not change who he was last week. Mike McCarthy just ended up worse.
Yeah,
Kyle Shanahan is a bit better at doing the offense thing.
Just a little
and
bit.
he's gonna do really bad things to Joe Barry.
Unspeakable
and probably
things, really.
Yeah, like probably put the nail in the coffin on Joe Barry's tenure in Green Bay. I feel like the writing's already on the wall there, but this is going to be the last straw.
The Saints offensive coordinator got fired this offseason. Anything's off limits.
Yeah, little Pete.
Goodbye, Carmichael. But and then so offensively, it's interesting because like I agree, Jordan Love needs to be perfect, but if he's throwing it as much as he was last week, I don't know if that's what you want. I think the recipe for a Packers win is to just limit possessions and just be an Aaron Jones-led team. Like, let Aaron Jones carry the weight, keep the 49ers honest to having to play the run. Don't let them tee off with all those pass rushers on Jordan Love. And get your shots where you can get them, but like just try to just always be in rhythm, like stay ahead of the chains. And it's kind of counterintuitive because last week it was guns blazing, this is how we win. This week, I don't know if that's a recipe for success because the other team can keep pace and can outrun you. So defensively, I don't think they stand a chance. You just have to hope to God that Purdy throws one of those picks that he can throw every now and then.
He can.
I don't think he will, but you just got to hope that he does and then capitalize when that happens. I think the Packers have a worse shot at pulling off the upset than the Texans do. I don't know if either has a great chance of it. I do think both of these dogs can cover. Like I picked the Texans to cover. I think the Packers can cover, especially like a backdoor situation.
Mm-hmm.
But I do expect a pretty 49ers heavy game here. Like they can just do anything on offense. I don't even know what they're going to go to. They can do it all because they're going against Joe Barry. That
complicates things for the Packers a lot. But before I jump into it too, Zach, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, no, I agree with Tony. I think I don't know how the 49ers defense is against play action, but I think the only opportunity for the Packers to have any sort of replication of their passing offense last year is hoping that Aaron Jones has one of the best games of his season this year, which has not been a statement that is
hot right now. Last 3 games,
he's been hot the last 3 games.
Finally healthy.
Yes, the last 3 games have been really good, and that's very promising for them. But for most of the season, it's been
banged up,
tough sledding.
Yeah.
So they need to hope that happens, and by the product of that they can set up some filthy play action off of that running game for Jordan Love to get down the field to some of his receivers, to some of the guys that he's finally gotten his chemistry dialed in with. Because look, you want to talk about like most improved over the season. I'm not talking about most improved from last year to this year, but Jordan Love has shown massive strides as the weeks have progressed this season, and it's been amazing.
And him the $55 million contract today.
The quarterback selection process in Green Bay is flawless, and the league should take some notes, figure out how to replicate, because they just seem to be able to do it.
Draft a wildly talented guy and sit him
let him sit. Years. Oh man, imagine what happens if you let the guy sit. I've been saying this for years.
It works.
But
sometimes.
So look, that's the only way. Look, San Francisco is the best team in the NFC by far. I thought that before we came in. My prediction on Twitter before the first kickoff was San Francisco, Baltimore winning, because we've already seen that. I think they can do it again easily. it's going to take a gargantuan effort. And I think at this point, the only team that can really do it is Detroit, but it's scary with that defense. So like, as much as I want Green Bay to really, really, really pull this off, there's no dogs here. So San Francisco is going to end up winning this one.
Yeah, so my problem with this game is, again, I really love what the Packers have done with Love, ironically. No, I think that everything has gone really well for them, especially down the stretch here and in the playoff game against the Cowboys. So the problem is, I think, legitimately believe this, I think Jordan Love would have to have the best playoff game in NFL history in order to win this game. Like, that's how big of a mismatch it is on the other side of things for me. Like, they might be able to score 40 accidentally against this Joe Barry team. Like that's just what it is, right? I think we kind of understand that with the Shanahan scheme against him. So, can he do that? Probably not. Obviously. I think that they're going to, like you said, they're going to have to be able to control the game to a certain point. Like, he can't just be Love throwing the ball 40, 50 times. That's just not going to get it done. But I do think it's going to take a lot of big explosive plays from this offense, not just controlling the clock, but finding big scores, getting the momentum off of the Niners if you can, like trying to.
Jaden Reed can't have 0 catches.
Yeah, granted, 21 passes, I think it was from Love or whatever it was, not a lot of targets going.
But he also had 3 targets. So
it is a whole thing. I think Watson's could have definitely more of an impact as well in this game, hopefully. Again, Dubs was so it was insane. But no,
best game of his career. Yeah.
Oh yeah, easily. But also they just kind of just didn't cover him sometimes because
Aaron never gave me a chance.
Right. Yeah. No, so I think again the Packers clearly are at a huge disadvantage just by default because of the team that they're playing. I will say the run defense for the Niners not so great this year, honestly, overall.
No, they're gettable on the ground.
That's why I think it has to be on the ground a lot of the time. But again, you like Zach mentioned, getting big plays off of play action off that run game. But granted, you don't have to have success in the run game to run play action. We know this. It's just kind of a general thing. Like,
it just nice helps if Aaron Jones is going off, and that just makes it so much easier for the defense to bite on him. And then it's just like, oh, Jordan Love just doop, see you later.
Yeah. I think the key though is if you can run the ball and you can avoid Travarius Ward, who I believe he's healthy, right? I always worry with him. Sometimes he's not.
Yeah, I think he's healthy right now.
I think he's good. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure San Francisco has the healthiest roster coming into the play.
Pretty much, as far as I can remember.
As far as starters.
So, anyways. But yeah, if you can avoid him, because man, he's tough to throw. I'll tell you what. I think they're going to have success on offense. I just don't think it'll be enough success, right? Like, that's the problem with this. They could have a 30-point game, and it might not mean anything. They might not even cover the spread with a 30-point outing on offense, which is sad to say, but I think it's possible, right? I mean, we've seen this team give up 5 touchdowns to Raheem Mostert in that one playoff game. Like, granted, it was years ago, but they're just not built to play this Niners offense. I really just don't think they are. So let's do score predictions here. Tony, what do you have for this one as far as score goes?
So I do think that it's going to be high scoring. I think that the Packers will be able to score, but there's also a weird theme to these playoff games between these two teams, and it's hard to say the Packers are the same team they were when they were playing in the playoffs, but there's just a vibe to these games, right? And they're always on the lower scoring end, and usually in somewhat shocking fashion. So I'm not predicting a low scoring game. I think I'm still predicting the over with this score. And I will give the 49ers the cover just barely. I'm going to say 31-20. I do think because the Packers game plan is going to be to very lean on the run game heavy. I think the 49ers, if they get a lead big enough, they'll start to go really run game heavy, and this game could melt away before a ton of points could be laid on. Of course, 51 points is a lot of points, but this game has the potential for each team to get into the 30s and 40s. I don't think we see that happen. So 49ers 31, Packers 20.
All right, what do you think, Chuck?
Yeah, the only players currently outside of their injured reserve list that are hurt for the 49ers, Clelin Ferrell is out, and Dre Greenlaw is questionable. That's it. Everybody else has no designation. So yeah, San Francisco is probably one of the healthier teams, along with Baltimore, coming into the playoffs, and I mean, is what happens.
Crazy what a week rest will do for you.
A week, 2, 3 weeks. I mean,
The Ravens especially.
So yeah, well, did they the 49ers stat players too? They already had their
they stat players too.
Yeah,
because that was Carson Wentz versus Sam Darnold in Week 18.
Yeah.
What a sight that was.
Yeah, so they both one teams have had at least 2 weeks of rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean more than that if you count the one following the week following that. So I mean they're all going to be nice and toasty coming out ready to play some football. I do think that, as we were saying with the Ravens, that could possibly lead to some of those vintage Brock Purdy 7th round pick mistakes. But there's also the fact that he still looks they still look unflappable when they play just about anybody. So I'm not going to predict a San Francisco loss. I personally feel like this is the easier upset of the two, just because I think that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have more motivation to win today because they haven't gotten to the conference championship, whereas the 49ers can not necessarily all of them, but some of them would be like, oh, we've been there before. Like this is pretty standard. I think there's a lot more going with how healthy Lamar Jackson is and all that. They need this. If they don't do it this year, it's almost like, okay, what are we doing? Because you've had multiple opportunities. So but I still think both of them win. I'm going to say San Francisco wins 34-24. I think this one is, and also I feel like this one's a bit more high scoring, just of a much nicer setting.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know what's going on over in the Bay Area.
Who knows? It's probably going to be awful.
I don't know. I didn't check that.
I don't know about weather on the West Coast. I've lived in the East Coast my entire life.
Me as well.
I'm going to say 35-24. I think they're just going to barely cover. I think that the Packers will look good offensively, just not enough to overcome the Niners' onslaught. And let's be honest, as much as we as a podcast are not on the whole Brock Purdy is an elite quarterback train, with the offensive weapons they have, he can sure put up elite numbers. We know that much. That's not in question. So I think against this defense, for sure, he can keep it up. Now, granted, depending on who wins the game we're going to be talking about next, I think it could impact, how likely it is that they continue steamrolling through things. But I think that overall,
62 degrees at kickoff.
Ooh.
So yes, but there is going to be rain throughout the entirety of the game.
Ooh, okay.
Brock Purdy's tiny hands showing up.
Here we go.
We got a fumble in the pocket.
Hey, let's not talk about tiny hands on this podcast, guys. Please. That's a sore.
Could you imagine how bad it would have been if Kenny was out there last week? Mason's big hands can cut through the Buffalo weather.
That's so funny because I thought it was a Donald Trump joke, and I was about to laugh.
Either way, pass. No, anyway. No, let's get into the Buccaneers Lions game. As we saw, JT is very much on the Buccaneers side of things. I wonder why. It's not like he is a fan of the team or anything.
Hey, give Baker the contract.
I can't wait to see what his contract looks like, because it's gonna probably be them, I assume, and it's probably been pretty decent.
It should be.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes with him.
He hasn't been bad.
No, of course not. So here's my thing with the Buccaneers line. I'm going to start with this, right? Buccaneers are fun, right? The Baker Mayfield experience is in full bloom for them, right? The Eagles got absolutely dismantled by this team. Now, granted, the Eagles are bad. They're not good, right? Like this, they are not playoff caliber at this moment in time. Like it's just what it was, right? It sucks for them, but they weren't good. But they still got thoroughly dominated by this team, like pretty easily. And that tells you a lot about both of the teams, I think, because the Buccaneers easily could have, like they did last 2 weeks of the season, kind of put up duds offensively and not done a whole lot of anything. But they came out and they were slinging and they couldn't tackle anybody. If you're the Eagles side of things, like James Bradbury had a retirement game, in my opinion. Like Buddy needs to just call it quits, in my opinion, as great as he has been. But no, I really think the Buccaneers are really good offensively, obviously. And I think defensively, they got their pressure package back. Like Bowles, the thing with him, and it's why this game is interesting to me more than maybe it would have been otherwise, is the secondary has been rough outside of Winfield this year a lot of the time for them. The corners have struggled, but his ability to scheme up pressure and to throw different looks at teams, it feels like it hasn't been there as much as it's been in the past for him, especially when he's been just coordinating defenses.
that game, granted, the offensive line just wasn't picking up like basic stunts at times because remember the Eagles are struggling with that right now, or they were. But that pressure and the pressure he's able to find, I think, is going to be a huge factor in this game if he can replicate that. Because we know, as good as Goff has been for the Lions this year, and as good as the Lions offense is under Ben Johnson, Goff is never going to be able to just all of a sudden not just be able to handle pressure perfectly. It's just not the type of quarterback he is. If you can get him off a spot, it makes it harder for him. That I think is going to be the key in this game is how much pressure they can put Goff under, and can they get a couple turnovers off of that. But I want to send it over to Tony first with this though.
So I actually see a couple of those points a little different.
Okay.
I completely agree that the pressure that Bowles was cooking up against the Eagles was excellent, and it was relatively simple stuff.
It wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah, so basically he was just creating a free rusher, and since like they played the Bills, it's kind of the book's been out. If you get a free rusher on Jalen Hurts, it's an incompletion or a sack. There's no alternative to happen. So I think that it was a great game plan for the Eagles. I disagree about the Jared Goff pressure thing. He's actually been a surprisingly stable quarterback against, like, no matter how many people are in the box, no matter how many people are coming at him, his stats have remained pretty much stable regardless of that. And I think that's a credit to Ben Johnson and Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs coming out of the backfield. And really just, like, if you get a free rusher on Jared Goff, as long as he's aware of it, he's dumping it off so quickly to one of those guys that it's turning into a positive play more often than not. So I think if they come with that game plan of, hey, we just need to get a free rusher on Jared Goff, they're going to get just carved up. They're just going to get 5 to 10 yard gains to death. And then like I think the real issue, like question on Bucs defense versus Lions offense is, how good is this Bucs run defense? Because it has been excellent all year. And if they shut down the run, what does that do when they're more clear and obvious pass situations? You can do even more diverse pressures. If you start to get 2 free rushers coming at Jared Goff, the numbers change. Fair enough. So like I think if they can fully eliminate the threat of the run game, then yeah, they can start teeing off and cooking up some real good stuff, and that's when you start shaking Goff and getting him into potential turnover scenarios. I just think that the Lions offense is schemed up so well that I don't know if they're going to be able to fully phase out the run game, and I think the Lions they're going to be able to stay on schedule. I'm pretty sure. So offensively, I don't see any issues for the Lions as long as their run game can even be like 80% of what it usually is against a really good defense. On the other side of the ball, Lions defense has been they've been better. That like the story for much of the season was that they were a bad defense, especially against the run and then also against the pass. And like they like the classic Lions experience throughout the middle of the season was the Lions winning a game while giving up 250 yards to the wide receiver one going against them. Right, like that's what they do. So Mike Evans, have a day. I think that they will be able to completely phase out Rachaad White. He's not going to matter at all in this game. Yeah. And Baker is a guy who, if you get him shitting his pants a little bit, he's going to do some terrible things to your offense. So, like, I see this as a pretty big Lions advantage. The special teams is a concern for me because Khalif Raymond is out. But outside of that, I don't see an area that I think the Lions are worse off than the Bucs. So I actually feel pretty strong about the Lions in this one. I think they've got a lot of advantages. Sorry, JT, if you're listening.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, these aren't the same old Lions. Yeah. I think last week, outside of playing San Francisco, was probably the biggest challenge just because of what that game was and all the storylines surrounding it and all the drama. I feel like this is just, yes, it's the playoffs, but it's just another game. There is no like fanfare. It's just the Lions and the Buccaneers. There's like nothing real special, and there's nothing real like crazy that are like tying these two teams together. So I think one that kind of helps both teams just kind of remain focused on the game. Not that they weren't last week, but that also could lead to some of those like closer moments and just having that like aura of like, oh, they have a shot, they have a chance to always come back. Whereas this week, it feels like, no, look, the Buccaneers had a fantastic, well, they had a good season. There were
interesting season.
They had an interesting season, and making it to the playoffs is a good result. There were some times where they absolutely should have pulled away from the rest of the NFC South and didn't. And that was a little disappointing because they did what it always does. It plays till the end. As the NFC South has shown us year in and year out. Although they aren't doing the NFC South or the AFC or the NFC East thing where there's a different winner every time. So that's always fun. So it's been a weird year. I'm not confident in their rushing game as much as I am in the Lions, who have found an incredible way of having both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs viable from the backfield. There's like Mike Evans will absolutely have a better day, but like, what about the rest of your offense? Like, it's only one guy, and like Baker Mayfield's going to throw it up. But if all they have to do is key into Mike Evans, then all right, that's going to make it a little bit easier. I definitely feel like Evans gets his yards, but as far as keeping this offense on pace with the Detroit offense that has shown that, they don't have the rest that these other teams that we talked about had. They're ready to go, and they're going to be out here. They played fantastic in the first half. Yeah, they have one. That's what I said. No, yeah. They're not like the NFC East where they haven't had a winner. They've won 3 in a row, but it's come down to the wire the past 2 years. It sucks. I hate it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I again, as like Tony said, I don't see many opportunities for the Buccaneers to upset in this game. It's actually the one game that I don't see an upset really possible all that much, just because I feel like Detroit is that much better. But it's also the top of the NFC, and like the NFC is a very top heavy division or conference. So
I think ultimately for me, and like going back to what I said before, I think that there is a path for the Buccaneers to win this game. I just think there's much more paths for the Lions to win this game, right? There's a lot more normal like things that can happen for this game where the Lions come out on top, right? And being at home is obviously huge. Back-to-back home playoff games is awesome for the Lions. It's great. There's just something about, like, I think that the Lions will win. I'm just going to say that. I'm not picking the Buccaneers upset, but I feel like this game is going to be more chaotic and wild than maybe we think. There's just something about the way that the Buccaneers play that I feel like invites chaos between the quarterback that they have and the defense that they try to run. Like, I think things could get mucked up and it could be real interesting at the end of the game. But I do think I'll start here. I'm gonna pick the Lions to win 27-20. I think that they will win this game, and I think that the 20 points the Buccaneers get, it could end up being like a backdoor touchdown type of thing to make it closer, or it could just end up being a pretty close game. Either way, I do think the Lions come out on top of this one.
I can give my score. Yeah. I agree. The Lions come out on top. I think I kind of gave it away that. Yeah. I feel that they have advantages on both offense and defense. I think that they are the home field crowd is going to be an asset. I'm sorry, JT. I feel like we have to like make some sort of side bet on this because I have been very anti-Bucks this year. They've proven me wrong more often than not. But I think this one is a pretty sizable game. I wouldn't be offended if Vegas had put a 10-point spread on this one. Put it that way. I think I'd still be on the Lions side. So I'm gonna go with Lions 31, Bucks 13. I think that we get a bit of a shellacking at the end. I think it's probably like 20-10 or something at half, but then I think we get just a full on shellacking by the end of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. What do you think, Zach?
So I think this game is going to be the one game where home field advantage matters the most, and only because you have a stadium full of fans who Bucks money line, baby.
Let's do it.
You got a stadium full of fans that have never, ever been here before, ever.
Minus last week, but that's it.
No. I mean the divisional round.
Yeah.
They've never been in the divisional round before. This is something that hasn't happened in 30 years. So like that's gonna be one of like the most raucous scenes of the entire weekend, because you're gonna have the entire stadium of Lions fans giving it their absolute all, because that's exactly what I would be doing if I was Miami. If Miami was in, I have never, ever gotten to see a divisional round game from Miami. If they made it to the divisional round, I would be going absolutely insane, as would the entire stadium. That is going to be one of the biggest advantages for Detroit this week. And I don't think it can be undersold at all, because especially in a dome, it's going to be insane. Like you're talking probably like vintage Superdome levels of sound. I would say.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, finish. I had one thing that I forgot to say, but
that's going to be, and I think that's going to be huge. And we're talking about, like, look, as we said, the Buccaneers have had a fantastic season, but it's not hard to shake Baker Mayfield. It's not. And I just feel like it's going to be a massive, massive asset for the Lions, and it's going to push this game over the edge in their favor. Now, now I know Tony's got him a bit more high scoring. I'm going to say it's probably going to be like a nice 28-20. They'll probably be like a nice like 17-14, and the second half the Lions pull away and the Buccaneers really can't just get to the end zone. But the Lions hit the conference championship and pray to God that the Packers won the day before.
So the one thing I wanted to throw in there, and because the dude deserves his credit, Aiden Hutchinson has fully arrived as a true, not superstar. I reserve that for very, very few, but he's the kind of guy
TJ Watt and Myles Garrett.
Yes, like if you have him on your roster in the playoffs, you feel like you can win any game. And I think Aiden Hutchinson can single-handedly end this game. He made some stellar plays to close things out against the Rams. He has fully arrived. I hate the guy, Michigan man, all that stuff, but goddamn, is he a incredible football player going up against Luke Gadecki, who I think that's a pretty clear advantage.
It's funny you said that, Tony. I was going to say before we move on to the last game, I wanted to throw out, I think if the Lions dominate this game, Aiden Hutchinson's a big reason why they dominate this game, because if Mayfield does have some time to do some stuff, I think it could get interesting. But if he doesn't, it's probably going to be because of Aiden Hutchinson. So we'll see what happens. I agree with you about Hutchinson. Don't you think the Jaguars are kicking themselves right now? Could you imagine Josh Allen and Aiden Hutchinson on the same defensive
The thing
line?
is, this is Trent Baalke we're talking about. I'm pretty sure he still believes that he was right. I don't think evidence changes the fact that he thinks he's right.
Trayvon Walker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
but
if you look at
boy
just
Hutch is winning the rematch, JT. Oh, sorry, we didn't. Shayne, can you put his message up?
Oh yeah. Again, Gadecki has had a great season to tackle. Actually, he really has. Overall, him and Wirfs have been a great tackle. Will he do it again? I don't know. It's a lot to ask, but we'll see. But let's move on to our last game here. Maybe the best game.
Oh yeah, probably the most competitive
on paper for sure.
Absolutely,
on paper for sure. Chiefs go to Orchard Park. Oh my goodness.
Patrick Mahomes' first game in front of Bills fans in his life.
Well, we say Chiefs go to Orchard Park, but we've seen this matchup a million times, just the opposite way. It's about time that Patrick Mahomes got it this way.
He got a road playoff game for the first time in his career.
He has to go to Buffalo at least once.
Yeah,
everybody does.
This game, here's the thing. I'm just gonna say this. As much as I'm obviously, you guys know I'm a Steelers fan, right? There's part of me, though, that is glad that the Bills are playing and not the Steelers this weekend, because this matchup is awesome. Getting this in the playoffs again is awesome. Now, am I expecting the same type of game as we got last time? No, because it's just neither team is in that mode right now. But, just having these two teams play each other, having it be Mahomes' first road playoff game, just a really cool game.
They need more shovelers.
Right? They do. Which, by the way, it's fun. I wanted to ask you this, okay? People have been flaming the Bills for that situation, okay? What do you think about the whole paying people to show up to do this, but then also not just having someone come in and do it without having to ask fans to do it? Also the not giving them tickets to the game by doing this.
You're getting paid.
I know it's hard to do, but what are your thoughts? Because I've seen so many people complain about I don't know where I stand on it, honestly, but
It's been a tradition ever since the team was invented.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's a source of pride for Bills fans. It's something they want to do. It's something they would revolt against if the team was like, oh, by the way, we're no longer allowing fans to help shovel the stadium.
Time out. And my girlfriend's in the other room, and I know she's watching right now, and she will swear that I say this. I looked at her last week and said, holy crap. If I was in Buffalo and worked at Wawa, I would absolutely 100% be calling out to go shovel snow for $20 an hour. They pay me the exact same. Why wouldn't I do that to go help out my favorite team?
Oh, like, I'm not saying the fans hate it or anything.
I don't get why other fans have a problem with it. Like if they want to do it, I would go do it not as a Bills fan right now to get paid by an NFL team $20 to shovel a stadium. That's cool. Like
it is cool. I think it is cool.
Like I don't get why everybody had a problem with it. You get food and stuff too. Like it's not a bad.
Yeah, it's voluntary.
There she is. It's voluntary. It sounds fun. Yeah.
Go.
It like I would have pride to be like I feel like it's less cool for them to be like, oh, let us like contract out some like no personality company to come and just get everything clear, where we could eventually or instead have people who want to be there.
Also, they do have a company that contracts and they take care of the actual snow removal, right? Like they set up the chutes and the aisleways. Think about how many people they would need to have on staff to manage shoveling out a stadium once a week. They're not going to pay those people's salaries the rest of the time. This is standard. Like I see a bunch of Chiefs fans getting upset about it and making fun of us for it on Twitter. You can see the screenshots from last week when they posted for $21 an hour. So credit to them, but asking for volunteers to come help shovel the stadium. This is just how it works. And
I would
really
absolutely get paid. I would absolutely get paid $21 an hour to shovel. That is literally what my job offers me per hour. Why not?
Now, I will say the next stadium they're building is not going to be set into the ground. It is not going to be as open air. It's got covering over like 80% of seating. So like this is going away, unfortunately. But it's a fun fan tradition. Like
it's also going to have
a cool thing,
field, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I just wanted to get your thoughts on this because I've heard so much back and forth about it. But that's kind of my thoughts too, honestly.
People need to start worrying about their own fan base's traditions. Don't worry. Don't shoot down other people.
Honestly, I think they just wanted a reason to be able to call Pagoda cheap. Honestly,
right.
And that's what they wanted to do. And it's like I always like kind of like whenever
I feel like it's more now that we know that they also contract a company. That makes it sound like it's more expensive to be like, hey,
well, of course they have to.
We're gonna
like to do certain.
We're gonna pay you guys $20 an hour too. Like, come on, like.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely fun. I would definitely do that too if I was in the position to do that.
I will say, like, I'm saying it's a fun fan tradition. I never partook, right? Like, I lived in the North Towns. I lived at, like, Lockport area. If anybody's listening knows the area. It's, like, a solid, like, 45-minute drive down to Orchard Park. And then if you tack snow worth shoveling onto that, plus traffic, like, it's just never, it was never worth my time. I wasn't going to make the trip, but it's a very cool tradition. A lot of people love it.
For sure, yeah. All right, but let's get into the game more. Obviously, Tony, I'm going to give you the option. Do you want to go first or last in terms of breaking down what you think about this game?
Let me go last.
Okay, all right. Zach, I'm going to throw it over to you then. So with this game, obviously, we've seen this matchup this year. It had certainly a controversial, not really, because it was very clear what happened, but a very talked about way that the game ended with Travis Kelce throwback, to Tony. What do you think of this one? Do you think that things will be different this time, even though they do have to go to the Bills? Do you think that things will be a little bit different?
No Kadarius Toney, so they're going to line up on sides this time,
right?
Yeah, I think it's a very different game for both teams because what week was that?
Wasn't it like
14?
12.
So that was probably 13, towards the beginning of y'all's stretch when you were making the playoffs.
I want to say it was a game immediately after the Broncos game, but don't hold me to that. Maybe after the Eagles game.
So at that point, I feel like the Chiefs were in a very weird spot as to where they are now, where there was still some like kinks being worked out, some game plan being ironed out. Whereas they've pretty much found their answer to the wide receiver issue, and it is Rashee Rice. I think it's very funny after we had last offseason where we were talking about how you guys were like, Rashee Rice, what are you talking about?
Dude, his I wasn't a fan. Was not good in a lot of ways, and they're just like, what if you just throw him the ball 4 yards away from the line of scrimmage. Let him run away.
They're not asking him to run routes, and it's working.
They're just like,
incredible.
boom, you're a good athlete. Run away from people.
Exactly, and it's working, and it's working great for them. He has made me a decent amount of money this year. Good guy.
Always good. In that
however, I do hold by what I said last week, where the Buffalo Bills are firing on all cylinders on offense, and it is very nice to see the run game. James Cook is playing real well. Josh Allen is in his element right now after a rough start to the season. I definitely feel like he's settled in and figured things out and figured out how to get things back on track. It's going to be a good game. Now, I'm going to give the advantage to the home team. I cannot believe that I am picking the Bills, but as I have below my name, no dogs here, because I imagine the Bills are favored.
2.5 points. Yeah.
2.5 points. Oh, that's so that means they're saying that I don't know, on a neutral field, they would be favoring the Chiefs.
Home field advantage is kind of shrunk to like 2.5 in the book. So I think they're saying they would put it as a pick 'em on a neutral field.
Okay. It's basically a toss up, which I agree with.
They're just saying that they're very evenly matched teams.
Yeah. And that's I agree. That's the case. I mean, both these defenses are playing very well. Both of these offenses are finding their way. They're playing better than they have at stretches of the season, which is a good sign for both. And I think for Kansas City specifically to do what they did last week in those conditions, it's massive for them. They're not going to play another game like that probably ever. Most of those players anyways. I won't say the team. So it's going to be a very, 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 very good game. But I do think that the Bills pull it out in the end. And we set up for a very interesting AFC championship, because I don't think the Bills and Ravens played this year, did they?
Not this year. No.
We did not. No.
So that'll be fun if that was the case.
Let me
jump into it. So this is tough for me, because the Chiefs, I do think they have a formula offensively now. The problem is that offensive formula enough against a team that can throw the ball? No offense, Zach, you guys couldn't really throw the football effectively in the playoff game.
The last 4 or 5 weeks.
Right, exactly. With another, not just competent, but great passing offense on the other side of things. Can this formula of basically feed Kelsey, feed Rice, feed Pacheco, can those three, and obviously Mahomes, can that be enough against the Bills? And I think that it's very questionable, because obviously the Bills, especially when they don't shoot themselves in the foot at all, the Steelers had no shot whenever you guys didn't turn the ball over, Tony. It was over. When we did and you did, and I was like, yeah, forget about this. I don't care that it was 24-17 at one point. I'm like, this is not a game. It's not actually a game. And that's just what it comes down to. If the Bills don't shoot themselves in the foot, if Josh Allen doesn't give you a couple free possessions, they're probably just going to beat you. It's just kind of how it is right now for them, offensively especially. And the defense has really picked things up, even with the injuries and all this stuff that they've dealt with. Freaking Kyrie Elam had an interception, Grant Mason-Rudolph, and his bad throw, whatever. But, he made a play. Goodness gracious, he's making a play. You can't ask for anything more than that, right? But no, I really think that the Bills they're the better football team overall right now. I think the Chiefs' defense is obviously really, really good. And I think they could force Allen into some tough spots. But I think even with what they figured out offensively, it's going to take more than just one bad play by Allen, or even maybe 2 bad plays. It's going to take a couple, and they're going to have to stack points on those mistakes, I think, to give themselves a really good shot at winning. So the score prediction we'll get to after Tony talks about it, but it's tough for that, because I don't really know. The over-under's weird. It's kind of in this middle ground of it feels low, but also the Chiefs offense has had bad games and the Bills offense has had bad games. I don't know, but let's go to Tony for this one. What do you think?
So I think the 3 most important factors in this game for either side: Steve Spagnuolo, Sean McDermott, and injuries, which is a really fun 3 things to be talking about in a game that features Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes.
Oh,
in the playoffs. But that's really both of these teams down the stretch. Their strength was the defense. No sugarcoating it. Neither offense was really all that incredible. The Bills had their peaks during their winning stretch, but that whole thing was built by the defense. Sean McDermott is coordinating some of the best defense I have seen in my life in terms of like this man is pushing every button available to him with a rotating cast of characters and just doing like beautiful things on defensive play calling. On the other hand, Steve Spagnuolo, we know this man. We know he just lives to get to the playoffs so that he can
and this year he actually had a great defense in the regular season too.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, what can he do now?
And so the last bullet point here, the injuries. The Chiefs defense is pretty damn healthy. They got all their studs. They are a complete unit. The best unit of any of the units in this game, by far, I think. Yeah. The Bills defense, on the other hand, Christian Benford is officially out. He got injured last week. Yeah. Christian Benford, he was picked on a lot, targeted a lot in that first game. He also had the game-sealing interception, so kind of a mixed bag of results there, similar to Kyle Elam's second drive of last week, right? Like, you know, get called for the pass interference, then get the pick, that kind of thing. Also, we have Taylor Rapp is out. He's been like our dime backer, kind of like
third safety,
Yeah, we bring him in. He's sure tackler, hard hitter, occasional dirty hitter, but he's a good guy to have on the field, and we're not going to have him on the field. Balin Spector, normally not a name that matters, being a second year player, 7th round pick out of Clemson, but he had to fill in last week because Tyrell Dodson was out, and then Terrell Bernard got injured. So where are we now? We've got Terrell Bernard questionable. So Tyrell Dodson is playing, thank God, because that matters a lot. Terrell Bernard, questionable. He did not practice once this week. Historically, for the Bills, that means that he's not playing, but also, stakes are different, and if he can play, he's going to play. We've got Von Miller. Oh, sorry. I'm reading the injury report. I was like, why is Von Miller questionable? He's not. I just misread. Not that he would matter. He hasn't been good this year. Taron Johnson is the name that really matters.
That's the one I wanted to hear. I haven't seen anything about
He is the linchpin of the Bills defense. If you watch the NFL Films thing, like, Micah Hyde during the game last week told him, like, this is your defense now. Like, this is your secondary. This is your team. Micah Hyde, hands off the reins. It's Taron Johnson's team. He's questionable in concussion protocol, his second of the year. Now, he's been in concussion protocol a few times in his career. Each and every time, he was able to play the same week, which is really rare and usually indicative that it was more of a precaution and not a true concussion. Right. So if he can go, and he said he feels great, he was limited all week. It was just that he's in protocol. That's the only hang up. And so he feels that he'll get cleared in time, and if he goes, then I'm feeling much better. But if he doesn't go, I'm feeling terrible. So all of these injuries pile up, and then, like, on the offensive side, Gabe Davis is out. We know what he did to the Chiefs 2 years ago in the playoffs. I don't think he's been that much of a factor this year, but it's nice to have him, especially his blocking abilities. And then also our punter is injured, and we don't know if he's going to be able to play or not.
I saw that too. I remember that happening.
When we're talking defensive football, that's something that matters. Like, we signed a guy to practice squad, Matt Hawk. He used to play for us, also the Dolphins. We know he's not a good punter, but he's a sure holder, at least.
There's something there. Yeah.
All of those things, right? Like, I think the defenses are really going to dictate this game. The first game ended 20-17. I think we get similar type scoring output. The question is, do the quarterbacks put on the superhero capes, because they're both very capable? And I think Josh has proven that in the playoffs he will, except for that one Bengals game. He's been pretty much perfect in the playoffs outside of that. Patrick Mahomes, I'm never going to doubt his ability to put on the cape, and I think that, like, he's just going to feed Kelsey and Rice and Pacheco, and they're going to rely on those three guys, only those three guys. I don't have a strong lean, but I do think that I would be feeling a lot better about myself if the Bills were healthy.
Right.
I think that matters too much. So if we want to, like, I can lead off with scoring predictions if we want to do that.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I do think this is the third time that Patrick Mahomes ends the Bills season. I just think that, like, I don't know how much the crowd is a factor. Maybe we can get some Juwan Taylor false starts and, like, that changes things. But I just think that, like, it's Mahomes. He knows what's on the line here. Like, I just trust him at the end to make a play in a low scoring game. because they almost did it last time, and Kadarius Toney lined up offside, and now he's not playing. So I do think that the Chiefs pull this one out. I'll say like something weird, like 22-20. Like it has the feel of a weird kind of score game, but I do think, unfortunately, the Chiefs are in a better position to win just because of their overall health.
Totally fair. What do you think, Zach?
Well, ironically, I have it flipped. I have the Bills winning 24-20. Just because home field advantage, and I trust Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and James Cook a bit more than I trust. I mean, it's not necessarily that I don't trust Patrick Mahomes, but it's more so I don't trust Rashee Rice, and it's not from a aspect of he hasn't shown out this year, but it's more so, hey, the lights are bright. I get that the Bills secondary's hurt, but will he show up when the spotlight is biggest? And I hope he does. I don't think he's going to have a bad game, but I just don't think it's going to be to the extent that they need to keep up with scoring the way that they need to. And the biggest puzzle for the Chiefs is going to be, does Travis Kelce show up or not? Because that has been another hit or miss question. We talked about Aaron Jones earlier, but Travis Kelce has been either he's here or he is not at all. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with him. So I just Buffalo's churning on all cylinders. It was do or die, and they've been doing instead of dying. I just don't see them dying this week.
I'm sure you're glad to hear that, Tony.
Yeah.
I actually had this. I have the
Wouldn't be
same. I have the same score prediction, Zach. Actually, 24-28. I do have the Bills.
I mean, we all have the same score prediction. Just
Hey,
Tony
I had
has it flipped.
22-20.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said 24-20.
No,
Oh,
22-20.
no.
A little bit different.
Oh,
We're
okay.
going for weird scores here.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, so for me, what it comes
Six.
down to is I think if, like you said, Tony, if the Bills have their main guys who are banged up but are going to be able to play, I think if those guys all play, I'm going to assume that they play. That's what I'm going to do, because I think in a game like this, if it's even close that they can play, that they're going to play. Now, obviously, it's different with Johnson, especially because of protocol and like all that stuff. So you hope that he can, right? But if all those guys play, I do give the edge to the Bills just a little bit because, one, they're at home. Two, I just think Allen and his offensive weapons are more inclined to help him than Mahomes are at this point. I trust that to be, as long as Allen doesn't make the game-changing, game-breaking mistakes, which he has been better with recently. I think that his weapons are just better, right? Just overall, they're playing better, they're more consistent, all that stuff. Ultimately, I think that if those guys are out, like especially if Johnson's out and Bernard's out 100%, like it could definitely get messy on defense for the Bills at times. I think it definitely could. And that could open up the window for a big play from Echo or whoever, right? But I'm going to lean Bills. I think it's their time to go to the conference championship, and I think that if they do, I think it's going to be a really great game with the Ravens, assuming our predictions are right with that game. So I'm going to go Bills. Now, will Patrick Mahomes probably tear all of our hearts out? Us because we predicted them to win, and you because it's your team.
It's just
very possible. Yeah, very possible. And it's his first road playoff game. I don't think it matters where he plays personally. I know that it's a thing, but there's a reason he hasn't had a road playoff game until now, right? Like there's a reason for that. But yeah, I'm going to go ultimately, like I said, Bills. So a couple things I did want to mention before we get going, before we wrap things up. We talked about earlier, like we made a joke about Mayfield a little bit. Like what contract do you think he's going to get from the Buccaneers, assuming they sign him to one? Like, do we think it's like a Geno type deal? Do we think it's closer to like the Daniel Jones deal?
How long was Geno's deal? How many years?
I think it was 3 years, 90 million or something, or 100 million, something like that.
3 years with a solid out after year two, which I think is pretty. I was going to say the Geno contract, just print it out, have Baker sign it. So that's my answer. I think that makes the most sense.
I definitely agree. You give him a couple of seasons to be like, hey, show us that it wasn't just a one-off thing. If it continues, then you're like, all right, cool. You got 2 more, 3 more. You got 1 more season. Then we'll work on a longer contract. If not, then you can hop out after 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. I think it's gonna be the Buccaneers. Like, I don't think another team is gonna swoop in and be like, "Hey, we'll give you like 40 million a year."
I don't know. I think you could see some teams coming in if they're that desperate for an answer under center.
I think it's it's the Bucks because Baker chooses them. I think Baker's going to follow Dave Canales. Like I don't think that he would go take, even if it's a little bit more money, to a new environment. I think that he would accept that. Well, one, the tax breaks, no state income tax, so the money goes a little bit further in Florida.
Yeah,
but two, I think he's finally found a system that works. This man had the system changed on him just about every year of his career. I think that he's going to hold on to dear life because he found something that works for him.
It is so crazy looking at those pictures from last year of him lining up on defensive line on Carolina's scout team. Like, come on.
Yeah, I've always thought Baker was definitely better than he showed last year, especially. But yeah, good for him, man. I was just curious what you guys thought on that. But that'll do it for us this week.
Oh, that was you said a couple things. I was ready.
That's the main thing. I didn't. We'll save more stuff for later. But yeah, overall, it should be a fun divisional round weekend. Hoping that it's better games, even though there is some big spreads. I'm hoping that the games are better. We'll be finding out here in a couple hours, at least for the Saturday game.
Shout out Niner game day. Let's go.
Yeah, there you go. We'll see. I'm sure yeah, right. Seriously, the Packers would be so fun to have a 7th seed get to the freaking.
It would be
really
interesting, cool. But I just don't.
Could you imagine a Packers-Lions NFC Championship game in the year 2024? They split though,
right? They did split because that was the Wax and Gibbous game.
Except the Packers really gave it to them in the second.
Oh,
game.
You have no idea. I was so prepped. I had sent a tweet to my editor at PFN saying, "Hey, I just saw this tweet on X on Twitter. You know what? I will never call it X until they change the domain name, which they never will. So
I don't care if they change their name or not.
But so it said, "Oh, hey guys, just want to let you know the last time that the Lions won a game, the moon was in this phase. It's going to be in this phase."
That one.
Yeah, and I was like, "Hey, let's get it ready. Let's get it going." And he was like, "Oh no, unfortunately not this week. We don't have as much data to have for that one." So I was like, that sucks."
Oh well, no, that's okay. But no, like I said, it should be fun. We'll be back next week, talk about the conference title game, see who's most right. I think we were mostly on the same page, except for I think you picked the Chiefs, obviously. Tony,
you picked Chiefs.
Yeah, is that the only one that we were on?
That might have been. That might have been the only one.
So hey, I before last night when you sent the message, I had my girlfriend and I do picks as well. I had her make picks, so it's gonna be everything. She did Tony. She had everyone except for she picked the Chiefs, not the Bills. So
boo.
Boo yourself, Tony. Then no, I'm just kidding.
Hey, worst case scenario, if the Bills win, then his team wins. If they don't, then he was right.
It's true.
I don't care about being right on this show, people. I don't want
that. It's called an emotional hedge.
That's true. He does get a win of some kind either way, but
it's called an emotional hedge.
Nothing about this show would like me predicting the Chiefs. I wouldn't count it as a win. I would still be a very sad person.
You'd be like,
the emotional hedge isn't real.
Why did I say that? No, but
well, that's the emotional hedge is when you actually put money on it. So
that's true. Yeah, but. All right, that'll do it for us this week. We'll be back next week to talk about the title games, any more coaching news, just any news in general. Again, we'll see you guys next time.